Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson, and it is Mailbag Day. Lots of good questions, as usual. Always impressed with what you guys send in. Well thought out stuff, and some things sometimes I overlook in the first two podcasts of the week, or just general questions. And many of you asked something along the lines of, why is Cordarrelle Patterson out there as much as he is? Now, we did snap counts yesterday. I think he was like 8 or 10. And once in a while, you will see him as a, quote, wide receiver with either Warren or Harris on the field. Okay. I mean, I kind of get that approach. I don't love it, especially with Pickens out, though. Maybe you manufacture a little something, but he's not a very good route runner. And he has some okay chunk runs, but they seem to be when it's really well blocked and he gets downhill. I don't see a lot of burst, and I definitely don't see a lot of elusiveness. So I really don't have a great defense for this. I get that he is here because he's an Arthur Smith favorite, and I thought it was a really intriguing signing when they made it. But he kind of looks like he should lose 10 pounds or, turn back the clock a couple of years, because I think he's pretty close to shot. Even his few kickoff returns we saw didn't look dynamic by any means. So I can't condone it. I know that Najee's usage and snap counts and things were really low this past week. I think part of that's because you're in catch-up mode. I hope part of that is not penalty for his only fumble that I can remember. It's not like we can't count on this guy anymore, because as much as I love Warren, he's much more of a fumbler than Najee. So no, I have really no great answer or defense for why Patterson's out there more than maybe 2 touches a game. And it's not obscene. He's not out there carrying the load or anything. Another question phrased many ways, but a lot of you asked, was, does the outcome of this Eagles game really change your look on the Steelers team? Do you believe they're a true contender? I don't know that I ever believed that they could win the Super Bowl. Are they a contender in the sense that they could make noise in the playoffs? Yes, that I believe. I also believe that if I were drafting right now from 1 to 31, the teams I want the Steelers to face in a neutral environment, let alone in their building, the Eagles would be my last pick. I mean, I think the Eagles are a really, really good matchup from their perspective for the Steelers, really bad matchup for the Steelers. And I tend to think this is going to be the low point of the season, because they were clearly the inferior team. There is some hope. I mean, you can look at it like, yes, there were some points in this game, right? The Najee fumble comes to mind. A couple of the penalties that were pretty egregiously officiated, that maybe this game goes differently. But the second half was so dominating and smothering that I can't really get that out of my mind, or I'm sure many of you guys. But I also think that it's also not an accident that it looks like everybody's going to play for this Ravens game. Everybody all hands on deck for this one, and they weren't for the last one, which is exactly how I would have handled it too. And frankly, even if they lose to the Ravens badly, I mean, I'm not sure what it would take, I guess, for me to think, boy, this team's really not that good, and they're more Denver Chargers than they are Ravens Texans tier. You know what I mean? I think they're still with the Vikes and Packers and that kind of group, as opposed to really don't belong in the playoff type team like they have been, even though you limp in. If that makes sense, so it would probably take a 3-game butt beating in a row for me to really think that. And that could happen. I mean, again, you go to Baltimore and you host the Chiefs. I mean, you could get your butt beat 3 weeks in a row, and no guarantee you beat the Bengals. I mean, all those things are in play. This is the NFL. But no, I think they're still a tier 2 team. And by that, I mean in that neighborhood with the Packers and Vikings and Ravens. And I will admit, some of those teams, especially Baltimore, those teams' best days and ceiling is probably higher than the Steelers. But I will say the Steelers also probably have a higher floor with their defense than some of the teams I would put in that neighborhood. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC, MMA, head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Rob Marsico asks, assuming the Steelers draft a receiver, how much will skill be a secondary factor when evaluating their guy? It's obvious Williams is our second most skilled receivers, but guys like Skoranek, who are better blockers, play more. Will blocking be a priority? I bet not as much as you phrase this question. If you're let's look at who they just added in the draft. Roman Wilson is a willing blocker. He's a tough guy. We haven't seen him out of mind. But that's not why he was drafted. He was drafted because he's a hopefully dangerous slot receiver. Blocking was a nice cherry on top. Now, I'm not avoiding your question. And I also don't know that Williams is their second most skilled receiver, to be honest with you. I think it's probably Austin. Williams was one day. I don't know this version is. And Austin, to me, is a keeper. And I keep coming back to Austin because I think going forward, if they're in two receiver sets, I really think it needs to be Austin and Pickens. And that Austin is now close to, considering the rest of their room, an 85 to 90% snap count type guy. Obviously, if you're in 13 personnel and one receiver, I want to be Pickens. But if I have two out there, I want Austin to be out there more than he has been. And Pickens being out has been good for Austin. I think it increases his stock. It increases his trustworthiness. And I'm not dancing around your question, but I'm talking about Austin for a reason. In that you just drafted Roman Wilson, who I very much think will be in the mix as a 3 or 4 next year. Who knows? That's a mystery. And you have Austin, who is going to be in the mix. So assuming they draft a receiver, which is how you started this question, I think it's going to be a big guy, and preferably a big guy that can block. But I don't think it's going to be, under 190 pound type of player. Maybe it's a 5'11", 190 pound first round pick that can really scoot and get in and out of his breaks. But I bet he looks a lot closer to Pickens than he does Austin, whoever they add in the draft. So I think that's a good way of narrowing it down, that they're not going to go in this thing with a bunch of small people at any one position. No chance. And a lot of that is obviously because of the blocking factor and the physicality of the division and the physicality and the nature of the team as a whole, which I like. My man Joey Bag of Donuts asks, I know it won't happen, but let's say Diontae Johnson did become available. Would the Steelers take a chance on him? I'm glad you brought this up because I do have a little inside scoop on this, and I'm not going to reveal sources or anything, but I firmly believe that the only reason the Ravens have not released him is that Harbaugh thinks the Steelers will pick him up. And I understand that from a Ravens perspective, but I also have some scoop, and I'm not saying he's a bad person, but I am saying nobody wants this guy in their locker room right now. Steelers didn't. You can criticize the Steelers. They didn't get enough for him. They just wanted him out. Panthers, they basically gave him away. They just wanted him out. He's gotten to the Ravens now, and they aren't going to put him on the field. They want him out. But they're afraid to let him out because the Steelers would pick him up, they think. I think the Steelers are thrilled he's gone. I think deep down, they're thrilled that he ended up in their biggest rival's building because I think they think he has a negative effect on those around him. I really do. Matthew Confer, he also asked, what free agent running backs you see the Steelers targeting in free agency, assuming Najee is gone? I don't, to be honest with you. I'm not ready to assume Najee's gone. I would not give him his value as a contract. I don't think he's a very good zone runner, and this offense wants to be a heavy zone team. They inherited him. It still bothers me that they don't have more Najee-friendly runs, but there's still enough of them. He's got a lot of wear and tear in his body. He came into the league a little bit older. He's going to be expensive. But I think there's just a perfect scenario for this, Matthew, is you bring back Warren, who would be, year 3, 4, whatever, on the restricted deal, which is going to be very team-friendly, maybe even extend him. And this draft class is phenomenal at the running back position. Now, I'm not saying take another first-round pick, but I'm saying you take one in the 3rd round that most years would have gone in the 2nd, or you take one in the 4th round that most years might have gone 60th overall, and you find one that fits your needs. And listening to some of these draft podcasts and reading, listening to Kuiper and these guys that I trust, and, Dane Brugler, it sounds like there are a lot at the top of the draft, potential first rounders, obviously Diontae, a lot in day 2, and all shapes and sizes from rounds 1 through 7. So I think you're nuts if you don't take that approach at this point. Stay young at that position, stay cheap, give that money to Dan Moore or a wide receiver or a nose tackle or whatever, I think that sets up so well to make that room perfect ideal through the draft at a cheap cost. And frankly, I love Kevin Colbert, and I think he should go in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think Omar would draft a running back in the 1st round. That was a Kevin pick, and organization, of course. Nobody does anything on their own in this organization, but I think Omar, as a cap background dude, isn't using 1st-round picks on running backs, So I do think there's value, though, in this draft. And I wonder, would Omar be even thrilled about giving an above-average back $10 million when you could give that to Dan Moore or whatever? Like I said, I just don't think it's the best use of resources, and the resources available via the draft are just too tempting to ignore. You're going to get, again, you might get a 3rd-round player in the 5th round at running back this year, because how many teams are really even going to be in the market? And you get running back 10 in this draft, who most years will be running back 6. That's how you make money in this league. All right, guys, over and out. Happy Ravens week. As I dig into them, they've figured some things out. I know that they just beat up the horrendous Giants team and had a bye before that, but they are not allowing big plays at the remarkable rate they were before. Lamar's playing really, really well. So this is going to be a very difficult challenge. There's no question. Over and out.